And welcome back. So now we're going to talk more about proteins. So we've been talking about our important macromolecules, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, etc. We don't really call ATP a macromolecule because it's small, but it's an important biological molecule as well. So let's talk about proteins. This one might be a little bit longer than 5 minutes just because it's very important and a little bit tricky. So I'm not going to rush. This is proteins in cursive. So sorry for my messy writing. But yeah, let's jump into what are proteins? What are they chemically speaking? We know they're important to our bodies, but the first kind of fun thing to talk about with proteins is where are proteins in your body? So I like to ask this one to my younger students because they say the muscles. But of course, hopefully, you already have learned in your biology classes where are they in your body? Of course, they're everywhere in your body. Every cell in your body has proteins. So, the correct answer is in every cell. So that's always a fun, like multiple choice question. Oops, why did that? By the way, I did a more complete video on the biogeochemical cycles for Khan Academy. I'll put a link in the description. And with that video, because of the support of wonderful students like you, I won this tablet for free. So that's the tablet I'm using. I didn't have to pay for it. I won it for my video on biogeochemical cycles. So feel free to check that out. Okay, so it's in every cell. So if these are in every cell, obviously pretty important. So how does your body make the proteins it needs? Well, proteins, think of it as just the think of it like every mass-produced cell part of the cells in your body. These are the building blocks. They're the walls, the chairs, the furniture, the machines of your body. And so the way your body makes proteins is by mass producing them out of amino acids. So all proteins in your body are made, I'll fix that, from 20 different amino acids. Now there's other possible amino acids, but your body happens to use 20 of them. And they're all organized in a very specific way. Now, when you take biology in college, your professors will force you to memorize all 20 amino acids, their structures, their names, and be able to identify them based off of the structure, the name, or draw the structure. Rather complicated, so that's beyond the scope of an introductory course, but it is kind of fun to check out all the different unique amino acids. Now, rather than having you learn all 20, which probably I couldn't even do anymore. But I'm just going to explain the basics of what is an amino acid. And it's the connection of all of these amino acids. So we could have like guanine, cytosine, guanine, isoleucine. It's these combination leucine, these combination of 20 different amino acids in a chain that make up the unique protein that's needed for your body. So there's an infinite number of combinations of proteins possible because there's 20 amino acids. They can be as long as it needs to be. Some of these amino acid chains that form proteins are actually very long. So how do they form? Well, put simply, what your body does is it just codes for the amino acid and it takes the amino side, which again has a nitrogen, amino side of the amino acid, which is connected to a unique R group. And this R is just a placeholder, just a variable like X in your math class or Y in your math class. When we say, if we want to say, how many that Charles has 5 cats more than Susie, we would say y equals x plus 5, where y represents Charles' number of cats and x represents Susie's number of cats. Because Charles always needs to have 5 more, this is going to be a true statement regardless of how many cats they have. So in the same way that those are just variables, oops, still getting used to my new tablet. R is just a variable. There's 20 different R groups. The simplest one is actually just carbons and hydrogens. And this is a non-polar R group. And there's more complicated ones that involve sulfurs and oxygens and lots of fun elements. Attached to that R group, then we have our acid. And these are actually just floating around. So we have our amino side, which is nitrogen and hydrogens, and we have our acid side, which you don't need to know, but hopefully some of you remember that this would be acid from your chemistry classes. Okay, now your body can actually cleave off this OH group to make it CO minus, and that's gonna form a covalent bond with the nitrogen, or draw it like this, of an adjacent amino acid. And again, could be any amino acid, so we're going to put that R for the R group. And this process is repeated until we have a long amino acid chain. The last thing you need to know is this chain that's being formed is not a protein yet. So not a protein. It's actually just a polypeptide chain. Let me type this so it's easier to read. Okay, so we call this this chain a poly, meaning many, peptide chain. And that's because these bonds between the nitrogen of one amino acid and the oxygen of the adjacent amino acid, it's called a peptide bond. So on your test, hint, hint, you might need to know that term. Don't just call this a chemical bond, be as specific as possible. This is a peptide bond. That's why it's called a polypeptide chain. And then later, when it folds and develops its 3D structure, which we'll talk about next, then it becomes a protein. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video.